Hey,
Good morning.
good morning. How are you?
I'm good. You know, it's hard to believe we're already in the middle of the week, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's kind of gone by fast. So let me close.
that's good.
Yeah, it is. It's been a busy week. Been a very busy week, actually. A lot of things changing very quickly as we speak. It seems. Anyhow, we'll talk about a few of those. Oh, somebody's calling me. Oh, I know who that is. Okay. Yeah, we're not going to talk to those folks now. But we're going to go on an adventure today. You guys got your coffee ready?
I am ready for adventures.
Okay, because that's what we're doing today. We're going on an adventure. You guys have been, locked away in your houses, not showing up at tattoo parlors, things like that. And so
Yeah,
we're going to get you out and about a little bit. Let's see. Okay.
it's good. I need some topics to paint.
Okay. Well, hopefully this will give you a little inspiration. And
Okay.
and we're going to get started. It is 11 o'clock, and I guess when people, get here, they'll show up, and we'll just have to, kind of catch them up. So anyway, I took a little trip, and I went to go see a opening of a show. It's at the Cobb Marietta Museum, and the show is Metro Montage. Metro Montage is generally a really big and really good show, and it's unfortunate that we're in the middle of this COVID thing and everything is locked down. They're not able to have a reception right now, but they did open the show last Saturday, and they've had pretty good attendance. People are showing up a little at a time and going through and looking at it. And so I waited until yesterday, until things kind of calmed down a little bit. And so I took a trip over there, and I photographed the show so I could share it with you guys. Okay? So we're going to get started, and you get to see the show without having to go there. How about that?
Sounds great.
Okay. So what I did as I went through the show, and there were about 200 pieces of work in the show total, and I have to honestly say I've been to that show. I've participated in it 5 or 6 years, going back about probably 15 years ago, or maybe even 20. Yeah, probably 20, because the first one they had, I showed work in. And this was their 20th year of doing this. So I'm just going to kind of start, and this is kind of how you move through the gallery. And I didn't shoot everything, but I shot probably like 85 to 90% of all the work that was there. And so what I did is I took a picture, of the card that explains, what the work is, who the artist was, what the medium was. And so I'm going to start here. This was the first painting inside the door, and by an artist by the name of Elizabeth Carr. Now, I know Elizabeth. I've met her on multiple occasions, and very good artist. This is a watercolor, and this was the piece that she had in the show. And it's a beautiful piece of work. It really is. And for those of you who have tried watercolor before, getting the sense. Hang on one second, Betty. I'm unable to get the connection issues. I'll keep trying.
Good morning, Charles.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. There's a serious connection problem with trying to log in on Zoom.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, so that's why you only have a few people. Because I have a Zoom account, I was able to enter to get in on from my account. But there's a horrible connection. People can't get in, so that's why you only have 7 people in your class today.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully they can get that straightened out.
Yeah, I had to go to my account too.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's unfortunate.
I went to Zoom, but I had to put those numbers in again.
You mean for the class and the meeting?
For the class, yes, I had to put all those in again.
Okay.
And this is not the first time, because I was unable to log in last time and had to go that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of messages about there's no class today or things like that.
Yeah. So if you're not computer literate, know how to work around it, they're not going to be able to log in.
Okay. Well, we may go back over this afternoon as well, and we probably would have to anyway, because there's a lot of work to look at here. And just to catch you guys up who got in here a little bit late, this is the show at the Cobb Marietta Museum. It's called Metro Montage. And, I went there and I photographed the work. And so, I'm just going to kind of run you through it. Anyway, this is the very first painting that we're looking at, and it's by an artist by the name of Elizabeth Carr, who I've known for a good number of years now through the Atlanta Artist Center. And she works in a variety of media, but this happens to be a watercolor. And it's a kind of a medium-sized piece. It's beautifully done. And here's kind of a close-up of it. Again, she's kind of simplified the shapes and the forms of the figures, the water. But mainly what I want you to look at here is her control of values, right? And how she's used the values to really focus in on the figures itself. She's put these figures, in and around the rocks. And she's used those really strong darks in there against the lighter values of the skin tones and things to really, draw those figures forward. As Night Falls, and this is an abstract piece. It's in oil. Again, this is not a real large piece. It's kind of medium size, but definitely kind of the feel of a landscape. And again, the composition to this, I probably would have tried to do something a little different. I would have actually liked to have seen either a lot more sky or a lot more land and water, if that's what you want to interpret this as. And I think it would have been a stronger piece. The composition in this is a little too much, half and half for me. And, she's got nice movement and nice change in color and value, as you move through the composition. But, but I think it would have been better, again, if she would have kind of proportioned it differently and let one be a little more dominant than the other. Okay?
Should be horizontal.
Pardon?
It should have been horizontal. It would be nicer.
Okay, I should have been...
The page, the frame should have been horizontal.
Oh.
And then she could use it better.
Yeah, possibly. Well, here, let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, if we blow this up and we crop it, more like that, and that does feel more horizontal to me.
Exactly, exactly what I mean.
Yeah, see, it becomes a much more interesting painting and more dynamic than the way that she composed it. like that. Again, it's about half and half. And that to me makes it a little static. And so I would have, like I said, just done it a little bit differently. Okay. Here's another watercolor piece. This is Lynn Henry, and she's a local Marietta artist. And I've seen her work before. It's primarily watercolor is what she does. But, I thought this was a pretty strong, composition and interesting color, interesting subject. It's a boathouse. And the way that she cropped it, in the frame. And again, the composition is kind of half and half in a way, because that horizon line or that water line right there is about halfway. But, because I guess, of the reflection and the fact that she's kind of mirroring the boathouse as well as all of the boats and things like that, it doesn't feel too terribly, centered. Again, I probably would have cropped it a little bit differently, and either given myself more water or a little more boathouse or what's above the boathouse if you wanted to go that direction. But again, really nice handling of the values, colors, the reflections, all of that is working, really nicely. And the way that she's handling the media is really, really well done. This is Main Afternoon by Fran Milner. And again, Fran is one of these people I've known for years and years through the Atlanta Artist Center. And again, this is a fairly typical scene around Vermont, Maine, areas like that along the coast. But, the thing I like really about this painting is this is a really dynamic, really interesting, strong composition. And her use of light and dark. And notice how the light is really kind of in the middle ground of the painting. And up here in the shadows, here's my cursor right there. She's got really, really, they're not deep shadows. So you still see a lot of detail and things, as everything moves forward. And I talked a lot about edges and how you can use edges to your advantage. And if you look at this painting in particular, she's really done a beautiful job of handling the edges of all of these objects. If you look here, and these floats or buoys are very crisp. The edges are tighter. They're very intentional. And then as this part of the wood, even though it's a very painterly treatment, still the edges are harder and more crisp. And then as you move back, into the composition, and then as you move into the background, they begin to get very soft. And so she's very effectively used, her edges and the contrasting value to push and pull space in this painting. And it's working really well for her at this point. Next is, this is a very good friend of mine. I've known Susie for many, many years. And Susie Schultz is she's a very interesting artist. She works primarily, she's been developing a process of working as a mixed media artist. Now, I would say, she doesn't really do collage, right? So, she doesn't approach it like Elman, where she's taking found images of things and then applying them. But she will, on occasion, starting off with an acrylic base, take objects and things that she's found, such as like newspaper, right? And she'll lay down some acrylic, she'll embed the newspaper into it. And usually the newspaper will have some kind of stories or whatever that will relate, to the painting that she's doing, or something that's relevant to the time. And so she'll begin to build up these background surfaces, right? And then she'll come back over with oil, and she'll work oil over that surface, bringing up sort of the final object. And a lot of times she primarily does figurative work, okay? And you'll see a piece of hers later on in the show that's really, very powerful and striking too. And if you look at this surface back here, a lot of this is acrylic, right? That she put down as a base, and she's used multiple layers of color, and she's come back in, she'll lay a color down and then go back through it, or use what we call a comb, or some kind of object to scratch back through the surface of paint, revealing what is underneath it. And she builds up these really nice, rich sort of textural surfaces, after layer and layer and layer. And then she'll come back in, and then she'll go back and do, oil, over the top of that. And a really effective working technique. And her work tends to be, I would call it a little bit modern. She kind of works in earth tones and gray. There's usually not like a lot of real strong color in Susie's work, but again, she still conveys that idea really well. And again, composition, her compositions are kind of simple. They're not real complicated, but they're always, really strong. And she's very good at being aware of where she's placing the focal point in the painting.
What's her name again?
Susie Schultz, Schultz.
Thank you.
And she's actually, I think they did an article, it's been 2 or 3 years ago, in American Artist on her. So she, she's gotten some, some good promotion, and her work is in, a pretty wide variety of collections now. A lot of people are beginning to collect her work and stuff. So, she's been, very successful, and she's kind of based out of Avondale Estates. She had a studio over there. She has a studio over there now. She left for about 2 to 3 years. She was back and forth. She found an opportunity in Florida. I can't remember exactly where, but there were a group of artists that had a studio space there, and she sort of hooked up with them and, worked for a while and produced, more and more work. But, she came back to Avondale probably about 2 years ago. So she's been back in the area for a while. And
I like her style.
yeah, she's got beautiful work. And her figures in particular, and like I said, you'll see a figure from her a little bit later. But yeah, she's very, very strong figurative artist. Okay. This is Nikki Davidson. I've met Nikki on a couple of occasions, and she primarily does landscapes. In some ways, a little bit like Susie, her color palette is kind of limited. She tends to kind of generally have a very warm, color palette to her pieces. This is an oil painting, and it's beautifully done. Sand dunes, grass. And she tends to do things. Again, their landscapes, they tend to be kind of coastal scenes, things like that. She seems to like that subject a lot. This is Pamela Platt. I don't really know her. I've heard of her before, but yeah, I don't think I've ever really had the occasion, to meet her, and she's an oil painter. And again, this is a tiny little painting. I mean, it's probably like a 6x9, but again, it's very, very nicely done. It's got a very soft feeling to it, so she's laying down the paint. The paint's not, it's not real textural on the surface. It's very smooth and very blended. But again, it's a lot like Sargent's work, in the way that she's using the oil. If you look at this very carefully, about really the only sharp edge is really kind of right in this area, the book, and, the arm coming down. Even the face and, most of the hat, things like that are really kind of blended back a little bit, just enough to take off that hard edge and really leave, this area, in sharp focus. And so it really draws your eye right there to, this chair and this lady sitting here, reading her book. So, she's handling the paint well, she's handling her values well. Again, I really like the composition and the way that this is sort of divided up, on the canvas. It's more interesting than having them sit, directly in the middle. So it's a nice little piece. This artist, I don't know. They're out of Kennesaw, and I haven't met them before, but this is a, it's very direct style. They're using some palette knife and as well as brushwork. And again, it's kind of like a plein air style, where, the paint strokes and things are very direct, but again, it's pretty nice use of color, and design, moving you back through the composition, back to the horizon line and back to the mountains. If I were going to make a critical comment about this, I think one of the things that would have improved it, and they're pretty close, but I would have taken these mountains and I probably would have lightened the value on them a little bit, pushed them a little bit further back, because if you squint your eye down, the contrast between the sky and the mountains themselves are pretty strong, and it kind of interferes. It's like that edge wants to come forward. Now, another thing you could do other than lightening the value in the mountains is you could probably, rather than leave such a hard, sharp edge, probably you could have taken a brush or something and just soften that back just a little bit. Again, to take that sharp edge off of there, letting the sharper edges and things, here in the foreground really pop forward. She seemed to handle it, really nicely, through the mid-ground, back to that edge back there. But again, that kind of works against her, I think, a little bit. This is Junko Rothwell. I've known Junko for, God, close to, ever since I came to Atlanta almost 30 years ago. And, she's a little tiny Asian lady, very sweet, but just an incredibly talented artist. It kind of, she works in oils, but she also works in pastels. And pastels is really her thing. And, just really nice figurative art, color. All of her compositions are really strong and interesting. She's one of those people that, I've admired for many, many years, with the work that they're doing. And this is, this is a really nice piece. And this is a fairly large pastel painting. And I recognized the model, almost immediately. This is Mona Reeves, and I've worked with Mona on many occasions. But it's a nice piece. It's really strong. And let's see, Victoria. I don't know this artist. as well. You know, she's a new one to me. And this is a pin and ink.
It kind of hurts when you do. Like
Somebody's talking in the background. Can we mute yourself there, please? Anyway, really, really nicely handled. You know, pen and ink drawing. You know, a lot of really, you know, fine, delicate work in here. And it's kind of nice, you know, the interaction between the frog and the bird. It's almost editorial, you know, in a sense. And kind of the expression, you know, particularly on the frog's face is priceless. But he's got a nice sense of, you know, it being around the water and the reflection. So yeah, nicely handled. And again, you know, the composition, you know, kind of how the composition moves throughout is really nicely done. This is I know this guy. His name is Charles Young Walls. A lot of people confuse he and I often. You know, I guess we kind of paint in similar, you know, similar styles or approaches, and we have, you know, similar interest in subjects. This was his piece, and you know, it's a really strong piece. It's great use of color. You know, he's really pushed the color, and you know, all throughout, you know, the painting. And this is a big painting. This is probably, oh, at least 48, maybe even 60 inches tall. So it's a very dominant, you know, piece in the show. You walk in and it's kind of hard to ignore it, just because of the size and the scale of it.
Charles,
Yes.
when it said on there oil on linen.
Yeah.
It's like a linen sheet or something. I've
No,
never heard that.
it's a linen canvas.
Linen.
Yeah, you can buy canvas with what they call cotton duct, and that's the white canvas. It's been primed, and you turn it over, and it's kind of like sailcloth, you know, on the back.
Oh, okay.
But linen, you know, linen has a different look and a different texture to it. It's more toothy than a, you know, like a cotton duck canvas. And a lot of oil painters in particular like to paint on linen just because of that toothy surface on it. And you can do things, you can get effects with your brush work on a piece of linen that you cannot do on a canvas.
Oh, I see.
It just reacts differently. And I love working on linen. It's a beautiful surface to work on. And a lot of people will prime it, you know, and seal it, you know, which is a good idea. You know, for years they would prime it white, which was really kind of a shame because it has such a beautiful color to it. But within probably the last 10 years, Fredericks and some of the companies who sell linen canvases have started putting a clear acrylic gesso over it. And so it shows the color of the actual canvas. And I love that stuff. It's a beautiful surface to work on. And I like the natural color because it's like working on a toned canvas without having to tone it. You know, my pet peeve is that when you buy canvases, they're, for the vast majority of them, they're primed white, which I think is the most useless color that they could possibly put on a canvas. You know, because it's just like, why white? You know, but that's just become sort of the accepted standard. But yeah, I like working on kind of that middle kind of tone. The color of had a name for it called ecru, and it was really, really popular in like the arts and crafts movement. You know, a lot of craftsmen tried to emulate that color or use linen because of the color, you know, in their work. This is Ron Whittingham. I don't really know him, but this is a very interesting, very strong piece, and it's also pretty large. I mean, it's probably like 30 by 30, and it's a watercolor. Um, and really, you know, when you look at this, it's kind of a, okay, you know, not particularly exciting image when you first look at it. And then you start really looking at some of the actual work that he did in the patterns and things like that of the piece. And it's really a beautifully handled piece of work. You know, it's kind of decorative, well designed. You know, I like the way he's kind of used structure, you know, of her face and, you know, the folds of skin, things like that, and really kind of pushed and pulled the space with it. You know, so it's, you know, it's a very strong piece. I mean, it won, I think it was a second place, right? No, third. This was a third place. Okay. Next, we have, and I think this is probably one of the few times that I actually went to a exhibit or a show, and I actually agreed, you know, with the judges, you know, on what they picked as first place. And again, you know, this is a linen canvas, and it's quite large. Again, you know, it's probably a good 5 foot wide piece, and it's incredible. And you know, and I've met Gail Wagowski
Wow.
on many occasions,
Wow.
and she's a fairly well, you know,
Wow.
known both nationally, internationally. You know, she's been in a lot of you know, these American realist competitions, and always done very well. But this is an incredible painting. You know, from the technical aspect of the painting itself, the composition, just everything about it is really just beautifully done. I was really kind of blown away and looking at this, and I shot a couple of detail shots, and I'll show you those. And
Look at the photo.
yeah, we've got about seven more minutes, and we'll probably spend a good time on this, and then we'll come back this afternoon and go through some of the rest. But again, you know, just, you know, she captured sort of the expression, you know, the movement of the figure and the form, you know, with the lights and all the value, you know, the light sources, things like that, all feel very natural. Okay. And you begin to look at how she handled, you know, the books, the wood, you know, all the surfaces in there, and how the light, you know, from the window is playing on those wood surfaces as well. And just really, really beautifully handled. I mean, you know, you could just go study that painting, you know, for, you know, a long time. It's like everything she did there was really right. You know, I mean, she really thought out every bit of detail and things in that painting, and you know, you know that in looking at this, that yes, you know, she saw this somewhere and probably photographed it, but she also took a lot of time to really carefully design, and she probably added things in. She probably edited a lot out, you know, but she was very conscious about, you know, what she put in there, and you know, how she painted it, how she rendered it, even capturing the reflection of the candelabra, you know, on this glass panel, you know, that's got a photograph or something in it. So, I mean, it's an amazing piece of work to see, and if you can get over there, I would certainly go do that.
It is amazing.
This is the next piece, and again, this is actually done in glass. When I first looked at it, I thought initially that it was a piece of ceramic, but it's not. It's all glass that was formed in a hot kiln. So you would heat the glass, you would mold it and form it, put it back in there for a little bit, and keep, playing with it. And then after it all cooled, somehow she used acrylic paint on the outside. And my guess is, in looking at this, how she actually did this was she formed the shapes and things in the glass, while it was hot, and then she let it cool, and she probably went back in with an engraving tool, and all of these patterns and things are etched in there, in the side of the glass. And then she probably took the acrylic paint and painted on it and rubbed it back so that it's, the paint is just down in the recesses. So it was quite a process, in creating this. But it really is a striking, very beautiful piece of work. And, it's two pieces. It's a smaller vessel, and then the larger vessel. Okay. And there's a side view of it.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, really, really nicely done. Very striking piece of work. So, all right. And I think this was a second place winner. Okay. Here's an artist that I've known for many, many years, and he teaches over at Chastain. He's been teaching over there for a long time, and I've been in many, many shows with this guy, Philip Carpenter. He, he's very strong, in his drawing skills, and he's not a painter. He doesn't like to paint. I've never seen him paint anything, but what he really focuses on is using colored pencil, and that's his medium. And in fact, he kind of got me to using colored pencil, for drawing, just because it is such a permanent medium and it doesn't rub off in sketchbooks and things like that. So I really find it very useful to use. But he's really hooked on these, these Prismacolor pencils. And, all of his pieces come out looking, like, almost photographic type paintings. And this is very typical for him. He doesn't usually do guns and things like that, but he'll take, simple things like a hoe or a tool, a piece of fruit, some kind of object. And it's always sort of floated out there on a white background. And he uses, a really nice, plate finish drawing paper. It's more like Bristol board, I guess. It's very thick, but it's very smooth. And he just builds up these layers and layers and layers of Prismacolor pencil on it. And honestly, I mean, you begin to look at this, and this is a detail. You can barely tell how this was done. I mean, he really works at smoothing, and blending these surfaces down, and layer after layer, and just building it up. But beautiful, beautiful work. The subject matter, I'm not so crazy about on this one, but again, it's up to par, for his work, and how accurate and how detailed he gets, in the work. This is a very, very close up. The whole piece is this. And again, just really, really nicely rendered surfaces. If you look at the transition of value, from light to dark, on a lot of those surfaces, he's very precise about it. There's nothing unintentional about any of this. And this was a honorable mention piece. And this is you don't often see pieces painted in gouache. And gouache it's an opaque watercolor if you don't know what it is. And so you can handle it a little bit like watercolor, but it does tend to be opaque. And a lot of illustrators used to use gouache because it reproduced so well and the intensity of the color. It doesn't have a shiny or glossy surface to it, so it's really easy to reproduce. And this is